Hi guys! So I thought it might be nice, helpful, useful to do a little bit of a catch-up video. So I did a catch-up video back at the beginning of April and I actually found that really useful. It sort of gave me an opportunity to catch you up on sort of where I'm at, where my channel's at, what I'm doing online, mention a few things that don't necessarily need to have a dedicated video, and just sort of like chat a little bit, you know, just relax and sort of chat about anything and it not be about a specific topic like most videos are. Yeah, so I thought I would do another one of those. There's a few things on my mind, there's a few things I'd like to tell you about, and I just thought it would be nice to kind of sit here with my iced coffee and catch up with you a little bit. So where to start? I guess I'll talk about my personal life briefly to get that out of the way, because I think it's good for me to kind of be able to share with you like kind of where I am at, and I also more and more feel it's so important for people to speak about kind of mental health and things like grief that I'm experiencing publicly, because I find that really helpful and to listen to other people, to feel like it's not a taboo topic. So I want to be more open about it as much as I feel comfortable. I have to say, so I obviously did a bit of a catch up at the beginning of April. During spring I was not good. I was in a really bad place during spring, and this is the thing about grief, like it is a sort of, it's a roller coaster, that it's not just like a linear line progressing from worse to better, and I actually felt at my absolute lowest in spring. I obviously have been going through some stuff, I've been seeking out help, I've been going to counselling, I've been talking to people, I've been talking to my GP, and just sort of trying to deal with that, and I definitely think I'm in a better place just now. But like I said, grief is a roller coaster. I lost my dad last year, if you're not familiar, to cancer when he was 59, and we were incredibly close, and it's had a massive impact on me, both the taking care of him and losing him. And yeah, so although I'm in a better place just now, I don't know how I'm going to feel in a few months. I might have another massive dip, but I think I've felt more and more that it's so important to talk about that, to be really open about grief if people are comfortable with that, doing it themselves as a sort of society, because it makes me feel better. Sometimes I feel like I can't broach this topic because I run the risk of making people uncomfortable, but really it's such a massive part of life, of everybody's life. Eventually at some point you're going to experience grief, and it's such a part of my life now. It is my new normal, and I want to be able to, you know, talk about that. So that's something I've been going through, and I actually have come to a place where I would really like to do a video all about talking about grief, kind of my experience, kind of why I think it's important, and all of that kind of stuff. And when I've talked about these kind of things on Instagram stories, which I do sometimes, I've had such wonderful responses from those of you that have been through similar things, or are just, you know, sympathetic to what I'm going through, and I feel less alone and you seem to feel less alone. So I think I'm going to do a video all about that when I feel in the right mind space. Obviously I have to be in the right headspace to sit down and do something like that, but it is something I would really like to do, so hopefully you will be seeing that coming up on my channel. But I won't talk any more about that here. Instead I'll update you a little bit on my uni life. So in terms of my PhD, I am halfway through now, and I did say in my last update that I would do a midpoint, halfway through PhD update on what it's like doing a PhD. And I do intend on doing that. However, I have this massive deadline, which is sort of the end of September, beginning of October, and I feel very much that I need to get that out of the way before I can really talk about where I'm at with my studies. I need to be more secure in where I am and need to know how I've done in that piece of work before I can properly reflect, and I think it's a really good indicator of the halfway point of your PhD as well, so I think it would be better if I'd done that to be able to give you sort of information about it. So I'm going to be waiting until sort of more like mid to late autumn to do that update, but hopefully you will enjoy it when it comes around. I know a lot of you really enjoyed my 1 year PhD update and found it really interesting, and I enjoyed talking about it. But generally speaking, I'm ploughing on. Obviously, like I mentioned, I was a mess in spring, so that had an effect on my studies. However, I'm in a better place now and I feel like I'm being more productive and getting on with things, so I'm trying to make the most of that mental headspace that I'm in just now. On the topic of classics, because my PhD's in classics, we should maybe talk a little bit about my podcast, which didn't exist the last time I did a catch-up video with you. And it does now, and I am so thrilled with the response I have had to my podcast. It has been a project that I had wanted to start for such a long time, that I've been thinking about for such a long time, and I am so pleased that I have finally done it and that it has met with such a positive response from all of you. So my podcast, if you're not familiar, is called That's Ancient History. You can follow it on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and it's on Twitter at That's Ancient. So you can keep up to date there. And it is a fortnightly podcast that goes up on a Monday morning in GMT time. And it's seasonal. So when you're watching this video, the last episode of the season should have gone up. Unless for some reason I upload this video before that, but we're like, it's about to go up in the next few days. So what I ended up coming to the decision was that it would be a 9-episode season run, because actually there's a lot of work involved in a podcast, and although it's fortnightly, which stretches out over time and makes it a little bit easier for me, I still have other massive commitments, so I'm taking 6 weeks off to kind of get on top of my other stuff and plan forward for the next season, and I have a few episodes pre-recorded, and then it'll be coming back in 6 weeks. So there's 9 episodes currently up of the first season that you can binge, that you can check out, on so many various topics dealing with ancient history and classics and modern receptions of classical topics. And I have loved recording them. I've had some really interesting guests, some really fun guests, authors, academics, friends of mine, and I have so many exciting guests coming in the next season. I guess I can tell you a little bit about what's coming in season 2. So I have an interview with another really exciting author who's written a Greek myth retelling coming up. I don't want to spoil what that is, and I've also not recorded it yet, and we're scheduled to record in September, so just know that that's happening. I'll let you know who it is once I've recorded that episode. There's also going to be an episode all about classics and early modern theatre with my friend Elle, who has a Bookstagram account, so I will link her down below, and has also studied classics and is genuinely one of the most intelligent people I know, works in publishing. Just fabulous. I worked with her at Pan Macmillan, and I'm so excited to hear her perspective on this topic. I will be sharing a dedicated episode just from my perspective, all about the myth of Helen of Troy. There will also be an episode all about the god Dionysus and many other topics. I won't give them all away, but I'm really, really excited, and yeah, I'm super grateful for your response and that you've been enjoying it. All of your reviews that you've left on iTunes, like, that makes a massive difference to my podcast, so thank you so much to everybody that's rated and reviewed it on any app that they use. It's just amazing. Oh, I'm just enjoying it so much, even more than I thought I would. Really, really enjoying it, and I have so many grand plans for the future, so do stay tuned. If you want to support the podcast as well as my channel, then I do have a Patreon account that I've mentioned a few times before, and since my last video I've also been running a book club on Patreon, which has been going really well, and we do a live show every 2 months discussing our book club read, and I have been really enjoying that, so thank you to those of you that are patrons and have been joining in on the book club, because I have loved our live shows and reading the books with you. So yeah, I will link my Patreon down below. One other thing on the topic of classics actually is a new page I launched on my blog. Now this might seem like quite a minor thing, but I'm really glad I did it. It's kind of been in the back of my mind to do for ages, and I think a lot of you will find it interesting, and that is a page on my blog that is just on the sort of like top bar of the blog that you can click on. That's classical myth retellings, and this is my like collecting together of all of the Greek and Roman myth and historical retellings that I'm familiar with. At the moment there are, I haven't counted, but there's tons on there at the moment, some of which I haven't read yet, so I'm really excited to get to myself, and I do plan on continuously updating this list. I've added a couple since I even originally published the list and shared it with you on Twitter. So do have a look at that, because I know a lot of you are often asking me for recommendations of myth retellings. They are all classical myth retellings, so they're somehow connected to the Greek and Romans, because that is my like area of interest, so that is how they've kind of been narrowed down. But there are ones set in antiquity, there are ones set in the modern day, just inspired by ancient stories. There are queer retellings in there with queer characters at the centre, and I have created a key which tells you all of these details, so you can find out whether it is a queer retelling, whether it's set in the modern day, whether it's an adult book or a children's book or a young adult book, whether it's poetry or a graphic novel, sort of the key details that you might want to know if you're picking ones to check out. And it also tells you what myth or historical character the retelling is inspired by briefly, just to help you narrow it down. So hopefully you find that helpful. If you think there are any books like glaringly missing from this list, please do let me know. But it's something that I constantly am researching and looking up myself, more myth retelling, so I will, like I said, be continuing to update it. On that topic, if you have any requests for podcast episodes or guests or myths you'd like me to do dedicated episodes on, again, would love to hear those from you as well. The most recent episode of the podcast was also a crossover episode, so if you haven't checked that out because it's just gone up or hasn't quite gone up yet, make sure to check out The Reading Women, who are the podcast I did the crossover episode with, and it's a two-parter. So the first part is definitely already up and it's over on their podcast, and the second part will be on That's Ancient History, or is on That's Ancient History. Now you can listen to them in either order really, because we talk about separate things in them, but they definitely make a wonderful whole full of discussion of women and classics and literature, and it's so much fun. So I had such a great time recording with them. It's one of my favourite podcasts to listen to, so as well as checking out my podcast, if you haven't already, make sure to check out The Reading Women. I think those are all the things that were kind of on my mind that I wanted to offload into one space. A little bit of like a different random video interspersed amongst the other content, but I hope you guys enjoy catching up with me as much as I enjoy catching up with you. I think it's just good for me to kind of like get that all out there in one place. So thanks for letting me ramble on at you. Thank you so much for all of your support on all of my different social media platforms, on Patreon, on here, on the podcast, all of it. It's amazing and I'm so grateful. As well as that, thank you for all of your super kind messages and supportive messages that I often get, especially on Instagram. So thank you so much. And I would love to chat with you down below, so please do let me know any of your video requests, your podcast requests. How are you doing? Would you like to see a video about the taboo or the topic of talking about grief and kind of the importance of that? And other than that, I think I should just go. I've actually got some time, so I'm going to film a bookish video next. But until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!